welcome back to BLOCKTV. It's time now for Bird Talk, and here I am. I'm Asher Westrop Evans. I'm joined by my co-host, co-anchor, and co-league. Of course, I'm talking about the very own Zachy Hennessy, also known as the Sonic Wombat. Here we have collected and collated some of the finest, most interesting, and most thread-pulling tweets that exist from around crypto Twitter. We're going to take a little tug on them and maybe see what drops down.
See what unravels, as it were.
Exactly, get the themes going.
So dive right in.
Without further ado, let's dive right in. So we've got a few things up right here. We've tweeted it from my Twitter feed at Asher Westrop. Feel free to take a look there and leave any comments or feedback as you wish as we go along with today's show. But so we're going to start off this week with one that was brought to our attention by our own Zachy Hennessy. So he's going to
That's right.
break
So
it down for us.
we're going to start with this here. And this is following controversy regarding potentially false reporting from the block regarding a raid of Binance's HQ in China. Mm-hmm. It was raided. It wasn't raided. There was a lot of misunderstanding regarding that specific point of information. And in response to this, CZ tweeted about it, and Justin Sun says, I personally would like to donate 100 Bitcoin to FUD Fighting Fund. It seems like a kind of like a joke. Who knows what it means? But CZ responds. He says, that's a nice raise. I guess I'll have to call. It's an expensive tweet, but let's make sure the FUDders pay too. And then, Justin Sun responding, the FUDders must pay. Mm-hmm. Could be, on surface level, like a cute little back and forth between two extremely wealthy men. Yeah. But Mike Dudas suggests that there could be more behind this. He says two of the wealthiest men.
Mike Dudas of the Block Crypto.
That's right. That's right. Relevant information. He says two of the wealthiest men in cryptocurrency plan to raise a, quote, FUD fighting fund worth more than $1 million, presumably to wield as an implicit threat against journalists who report facts that run contrary to their business interests.
Right.
So he says, potentially this could also just be used to, log information on the blockchain and make sure that it is viable and factually correct. Mm-hmm. But it could theoretically be put towards
a cudgel against potential journalistic action that can be taken. I mean, this is such a fraught field when it comes to how to move forward with this. When you're talking about a sphere that is so opaque, it's so dominated by crypto Twitter as a main source of news. So many things are happening behind closed doors and behind walls that were being reported out to.
That point makes you wonder why, if they're serious, why are they talking about it here, like on Twitter? Just slide into the DMs, Justin.
Well, I mean, when you want to make a big splash and a big fun, maybe you're trying to make a point here. I mean, this is the whole thing. CZ came out very strong against the block in this whole situation.
That's right.
Remember, they were accused of false reporting for this raid story. They put in the block had a very salacious headline saying that there was a big raid that was supposedly taken place at
Shanghai.
In the Shanghai office,
right.
Thank you. Right.
Yeah.
In the Binance Shanghai office. Mm-hmm. CZ saying they don't even have a Shanghai office. It's not real.
I don't know what they raided.
The block responded with photos of said office. I mean, this back and forth.
Right. And now it seems like CZ is saying, I'm having $1 million fund against this kind of journalistic action.
Right.
Seems like it could go either way. If it goes in the direction of, hey, akin to what Facebook is working on with their newsroom, but more blockchain-y.
Sure.
Great.
That sounds a fantastic initiative, but that's not necessarily what's being discussed right here. Just talking about
at least
raising a
explicitly
fund to fight FUD,
right.
Which sounds like lobbying to me.
Yeah.
Which, again, not inherently a bad thing to have lobbyists, but if it's explicitly targeted at taking on journalistic outlets,
right.
I don't know.
If anything, we need more information. And we would appreciate that from Justin or CZ.
Please.
Thank you very much.
Please, John.
Let's move right along.
Right, but we're staying in theme here. This is one I picked up on. This is coming from none other than Anthony the Pomp Pompliano.
Congratulations on your recent engagement, sir.
Yes. Heidi, congratulations to you. But let's pull up this tweet because he's talking on theme for the moment, which is the highly discussed issue. If you're an upstart media company and you take investor money from people and organizations you're supposed to be covering, you're not a journalism site. You're a propaganda machine. The question is always whether those in this bucket are self-aware to realize it or not. Now, at face value, okay, fair. No, there's nothing wrong with what he's saying there. You're right. If you are taking money in order to talk about a certain thing and you're not declaring that that's advertising,
right?
You're not separately declaring this as part of your advertising.
That's definitely the line of making sure that you are making someone aware that there is sponsored content going on here. if that is hidden or obscured, then definitely, it falls into this. I would say this is a true tweet.
Right. The trouble becomes in this modern media landscape and a modern information landscape as a whole, that line becomes so thin. When Google has the clearly labeled ads at the top of their screen, that's one thing. Right. But if you pay in order to have a more effective or efficient SEO that allows your product to be put nearer the top of the Google search results as well,
where's the line?
Where's the line between just disseminating meaningful information and being a paid shilling propaganda machine? And it's a big question. It happened a lot in the 2017 ICO boom. We saw those ICO ratings agencies that came out, that many of them turned out later were being paid by various projects or initiatives to pump various ICOs and give false ratings to projects that really didn't deserve the ratings they did. The masses of misinformation are hugely fraught, and they cause a general distrust in the media landscape as a whole.
And it's interesting to see that this ripple comes kind of at the same time as a large event going on in social media right now, which is Sacha Baron Cohen speaking out against social media networks and suggesting that if Facebook had existed in the 1930s, Hitler would have been allowed to post on their sites, and that's kind of that potentially controversial statement sent out ripples, and it's interesting to see that reflected here in the crypto Twitter.
Right.
Among everywhere else, I'm sure that there are similar tweets and sentiments in a billion other sub Twitter cultures.
Right. And it's interesting to note though the context of who's talking about this here. We've got the Pomp bringing up this conversation now. He himself, a man with numerous interests around the sphere. I'm not saying I'm accusing him of any particular impropriety here, but we've got an active, high net wealth individual in the space who has taken it on himself to put out a newsletter, to has a podcast,
a tweet regimen, like a steady tweet regimen, not just a tweet per day, but like.
And whether he calls himself media or not, a lot of information derived in and around the sphere, a lot of the sort of narratives that get taken up are derived from.
He's definitely
his
an
thinking.
aggregate.
Absolutely. So that line between citizen, journalist, entrepreneur, investor, commentator, those lines are so blurred now that it's interesting to note where this is coming from. And in the context of the last tweet we looked at, is it also appropriate for CZ or Justin Sun to be the ones deciding on the content in that sense, or does it need to be coming from truly independent news outlets? And what happens when they get that information wrong? What are the consequences of that?
Right. All discussions that should be kind of opened and focused on within the crypto community as much as, Bitcoin's going down.
Right. And these conversations are being had here, and I think this is something we're pointing out with these tweets that are being tweeted out.
Moving forward, we have from BTC Chris. He says, put out an interesting tweet. He says, I need to make a mental note for the next time a no-coiner is going through their anti-Bitcoin spiel. Spiel usually spelled with an H, I believe.
No, what are you talking about? No, that's how I'd spell spiel.
Oh, jeez. Instead of getting excited and refuting their nonsense, I'm just going to very coolly, very calmly say, nah, you're right. You probably couldn't handle it. It's not for you. It's a funny tweet. Here's the thing. It just draws to mind, Jimmy Song also put out a tweet. I don't have it here, but he put out a tweet very recently saying, if you are holding altcoins, you're not owning them, they're still owning you until you sell. Right. The idea is, maybe, could it be that we're all we're giving too many shits, not like in a whole, not in a nihilistic way of like, nothing matters, but like don't give it such gravity.
Right.
If somebody's like, I hate Bitcoin, it's just be like, all right, that's you. Like, I have the Bitcoin, it's fine for me.
There's the classic argument that if a project is of enough soundness and quality to speak for its own merits, let it speak for its own merits. You don't need to avidly attack and defend
in that sense, I would say, Chris, you're doing the right thing, but like maybe even take a step further back and just say, yeah, man, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I got my Bitcoin though, so, you do you. Yeah. It just needs to be, I think, a much bigger.
Here we go. We got the definition of spiel right here. This is.
All right, that's fine. I stand corrected.
I just wanted to, I'm glad our director pulled that up for us. It's important that we keep our journalists to account.
That's true, and were Justin Sun and CZ's blockchain anti-FUD system in place,
they
would not have been allowed to say that spiel is in fact spelled with an H.
No, but you know what? Exactly. I think the merits of a system can stand for itself. Those who scream loudest, the squeakiest wheels, don't always necessarily aren't the most correct ones.
Yeah.
Got a couple of friends, flat earthers. They love to squeal about it. Doesn't make
Flat
it much
earthers
more
real
true.
loud, huh?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily make it much
So
more
anyways,
true.
Chris, you're thinking the right way, but maybe even think a little further in that direction,
I don't like that. Let's assume it's a good system we're working with here.
And just,
forward from there.
you do you.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to round out today's tweet thread, the Bird Talk for today, with an interesting one coming from notorious Bitcoin skeptic, crypto skeptic.
Can't stand this stuff.
Yeah,
this is
Nouriel
keeping with the
Rubini.
no coiner.
Exactly.
sentiment.
So this is coming, Nouriel retweeting an interesting post that came out of Forbes the other day. This one had caught my eye separately, but when I saw Nouriel was on it, it sort of validated some of my thoughts on the matter too. Saying with the headline, Bitcoin isn't down because of China, it's down because you don't need it. We can pull up the article here itself, which I was having to peruse through before, written there by Oliver Rennick, who is interestingly lead anchor for the TD Ameritrade network. Not saying they have interests there, banking interests versus crypto interests. But anyway, the basic thrust of the article here is that all the claims of what Bitcoin will do to replace the fiat system, the rampant inflationary economics, it's not really true in the short term. The global system seems to be chugging along just fine, and big international tech players, Google, Facebook, whatever, they're all finding other solutions that
Is
aren't
it a matter of,
Bitcoin-based.
in regards to, how does it approach the inflation problem? Is it suggesting that
not that big
eventually
a deal.
it all balances out?
It's not that big a deal for now.
We're doing fine.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, in a sense, I got to back myself up from a minute ago.
Right.
That's the way, fair enough. You're just saying, okay, don't give a shit about it. Inflation,
Yeah.
still doing fine.
Exactly, and look, it's an argument that those like Rubini have put out in the past. We don't really need it. It's not that big a deal. It's not a problem for now. Why do we even bother? I find it a little narrow-minded.
Sure,
For
absolutely.
a number of reasons. One, it's an innovative tech. Let's, again, let it stand for its own merits. If it's not going to work, you don't need to crap on it from a great height. I don't think that does anything but pump an ego and get a controversial opinion out there for no good reason. Two, because it doesn't work in your context at this point in time, you're right. Maybe the United States doesn't have a mass use for Bitcoin that needs to be manically addressed right at this point in time. There are plenty of places that might,
Yeah, Nigeria, for example, huge for Bitcoin, and Bitcoin would do huge things for Nigeria.
Right. I interviewed a wonderful man from Kenya.
Neil was his first name. I don't remember his last name.
Kenya, from Nairobi, Kenya, who stated that it is a functional tool, Bitcoin, for helping to feed families, to provide housing, and to develop a functional, fiat alternative in places where some of the fiat currencies are harder to
And
get
if you
hold
look
of.
at, I've done several segments on Google search trends and interest based on location, and let me tell you, without fail, Nigeria specifically is 100% saturated with interest in Bitcoin compared to other places in the world.
Right.
Even compared to China and Russia and the U.S.
Right.
It's just really
Not to mention the slew of other, Argentina, Zimbabwe, Turkey, Russia, all these
Venezuela.
countries facing massive issues with their own fiat currencies. Like, just because something doesn't fit in your context, in your time, let's allow opportunities out there. I mean, there is one reasonable point, I would say, made in this Forbes article, which is that all those sort of rampant speculation of it's going to be up to 100,000, it's going to be at 1 million by the end of this year, that perhaps people are getting a little too carried away in those narratives, and it's causing some people to make foolish decisions in terms of their investments.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be throwing your whole life savings on the assumption that in the next year it's going to go up 100 times.
No.
That's not necessarily a smart investing advice all
Take
around.
your time, stack your sats, but slowly.
Yeah. Be
Couple
sensible.
cents at a time,
Exactly.
Don't
but
go
that's not
crazy.
financial advice. I wouldn't,
If we were to give kind of like an overarching theme to this week's Bird Talk, it's relax your shoulders, calm the
breath.
forehead, breathe deep. Don't give shits about what other people give shits about. Your shit. Just do your shit.
Wow, powerfully said, Zaggy. But no, I mean, look, I think there's an important thing that taking a moment to step back, taking a moment to breathe, think about ideas, let them marinate, let them ruminate for a while, and I think that's really the takeaway.
Yeah.
All right. So on that note, any comments and feedback that you guys have, you can feel free to reach out on Twitter, take a comment on our thread.
Asher.Westrup, @the Sonic Wombat.
We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know your thoughts on the topics discussed today and any suggestions for future topics we might discuss in Bird Talks in the days, weeks, and months ahead. Thanks so much for being with us, and send us at blocktv.com. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.